As cheesy as it sounds, time really does go by faster the older we get. When you're 8 years old, the summer holidays can feel endless. But when you're 38 years old, they're over before you've even unpacked your suitcase. Time is a thief. It steals moments from us without remorse or regret. And today I want to talk about one of these moments that time will steal from us. A moment so painful, so unforgettable that if we don't acknowledge it now, we'll end up burying it deep inside of us where it can fester and rot away. They admitted him to hospital straight away. We drove to visit him after school that afternoon. Dad looked at us, his eyes filled with sadness. I stared at the ceiling, willing my brain to go to sleep, but it refused. She told me later that she found herself screaming, not in pain or anger, but in disbelief. The house felt too big for Mem, so she sold it and moved into a smaller one nearby. And while the army gave me purpose, it also stole 4 years of my life. But what I'm saying is that I hate what they did to me, not to you. What they did was nothing personal. It's what happens to every kid who loses a parent. But as cliche as it sounds, we just have to pick ourselves up and carry on. For Mom, that means taking care of herself and staying active. For you, it might mean talking to someone about your feelings, whether that's a friend or a professional. Most of us spend a lifetime trying to fill the void left by our absent parents. But I truly believe that the only way to start filling that void is to acknowledge that it's there in the first place. We can't move forward if we're still looking back. And by looking back, I mean both physically and emotionally. We become warriors, not because we like fighting, but because we have to fight to survive. We have to fight to carry on. We learn to fight our feelings, lock them away in a safe so we can pretend that we're okay. But the truth is that every now and again, the safe gets broken into, and we re-forced to deal with the trauma that's been festering inside of us for years. Years that I should have spent grieving for my dad, dealing with my emotions instead of burying them under mountains of kit. And now, nearly 20 years on, I'm paying the price. Those emotions have turned to anger and resentment. And as I write this, I feel like I'm holding a grenade. I know that if I pull the pin and release it, the shrapnel will do some damage. My brother went to university, and I joined the army. Through sheer willpower and an inability to feel anything else, Mom survived. I mean, she's still here, still going strong. But part of her died the day my dad did. She's still in mourning. Part of her died the day my dad did. She's still in mourning. It was the kind of scream that rips your insides out and throws them in the bin. It was primal. It was animalistic. It was heartbreaking. After his funeral, my brother and I stayed with my mother through choice. No one could have forced us to stay, but none of us wanted to leave the other. Well, firstly, we have to acknowledge that it's there. You can't fix something that you don't believe exists. Secondly, we need to confront it, and that's not easy to do. Thirdly, we need to accept that there is no right way to grieve. Some people cry, others get angry, some throw themselves into their work, others throw themselves into food. Whatever we do, we need to try to be honest with ourselves about why we're doing it. We clung on to each other for dear life, certain that if we let go, we'd fall apart. It felt like that for weeks. We barely left the house. We didn't speak much. We just held each other. Sometimes I'd find myself sitting at the bottom of the stairs crying, and my brother would sit with me until I fell asleep. I have no idea how we got through that time, but we did. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps in the attic. Every cough sounded like Dad's cough. And every time the phone rang, I convinced myself it was the hospital with bad news. I spent the night in a torment that had nothing to do with my own mortality and everything to do with my parents. To say goodbye to one parent is heartbreaking, but to watch both of them grieve over the loss of their child, that is torture. "Don't forget to come back," he croaked. "Yes, Dad," I lied, because I knew that once I stepped foot outside that door, I wouldn't return. I never intended to lie to him, but in that moment, the weight of the world crashed down on me and I froze. All I could muster was a meek, "Yeah, of course," before turning and walking away. I felt guilty immediately. I shouldn't have lied, but I didn't want to burden my dad with my emotions. I didn't know how to deal with mine, so I stuffed them down and carried on like everything was normal. As we walked into his ward, the smell of antiseptic hit me square in the face. It was so strong that it brought tears to my eyes. Seeing my dad hooked up to machines, tubes snaking in and out of him, his skin as white as paper, well, it terrified me. It felt like someone had sucked all the color out of him. Even though he was awake, I couldn't help but think that this isn't Dad. This is a stranger wearing Dad's skin. What I'm talking about is the moment we realize our parents are no longer invincible. In my mind, this was a Wednesday. I was 16, and I lived with my parents and 2 brothers in a small town in North Wales. Then another day, and then another, until it became a week. There was a deep sense of pride in our family that if you have a problem, you solve it yourself. You didn't ask for help. Now, I understand that some of you watching this might think there's nothing wrong with that mentality. I agree with you wholeheartedly. But in this situation, it almost cost my dad his life. Finally, after a lot of persuasion, he agreed to let Mom drive him to the doctor, and I remember standing at the front door waving them goodbye as they left. Little did I know, it was the last time I'd ever wave goodbye to my father. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I was enjoying having my dad around the house. I mean, who doesn't like having their dad around the house for an entire week? But something wasn't right. I could tell by the look on my mom's face. She was worried. Sat him down and told him he needed to go see the doctor. But Dad refused. "I don't need to see the doctor," he said. "It's just a cough." Mom insisted, but Dad just shook his head, went against his grain to seek medical attention. My dad worked at a steelworks, and my mom was a nurse. They had both worked since they were 18, and neither had any intention of slowing down anytime soon. Their motto was, "As long as I'm able, I'll keep going." So when my dad took sick leave from work because of a persistent cough, I knew he was ill, but I didn't think much of it. He was fit as a fiddle. He'd shake off an illness quicker than most people shake off a hangover. And besides, he'd be back at work the next day. But then the next day came around, and he was still off sick. In those days, men didn't do that kind of thing. The doctor confirmed that Dad had lung cancer. He'd been coughing so much that he'd cracked a rib. We stayed in hospital for what felt like hours, although it must have only been minutes, because before long my mom suggested we go home. The truth was anything but normal. That night, lying in bed, I thought my heart would explode. Dad died the following Friday. I was at school when Mom received the call. And then slowly, very slowly, life started to move again. I chose to join the army to escape the pain, to bury myself in training and operational commitments, so I wouldn't have to feel so empty inside. If I was to tell you I hated your parents, you'd probably punch me in the face. Now, here's the thing. So what's the answer? How do we deal with this grief, this anger, this trauma that we've locked away? When we lose a loved one, we lose a part of ourselves. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that helps.